Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
The Stock Movers Report, your roundup of companies making moves in the stock market, harnessing the power of Bloomberg data.
Time now to take a look at some stocks on the move in Europe. I'm Stephen Carroll and I'm joined by Bloomberg's breaking news editor Louise Moon. Louise, good morning. Let's start with Shell. Profit missing on lower crude prices, weaker oil trading, shares down 1.7%.
Indeed, yeah. So this is their fourth quarter results. As you say, profits slumping for those two reasons that you mentioned, as well as their struggling chemicals business, their chemicals unit. So it missed expectations. Well, not only did it miss expectations, but those expectations had already been lowered. So last month, Shell warned of what they called significantly lower oil trading. And as a result, analysts lowered their forecast. And then the results that came out today were even lower than that. So shares falling on the back of that news. And what it really highlights is the big task really that the CEO has. He's been trying to close Shell's valuation gap with their US rivals like Chevron and others. That has become even harder this year. Those US rivals, their shares have soared. They've had quite strong production in lower cost oil fields. And then at the same time, Shell is seeing its own issues. That valuation gap, it's a big task to close that. So if you take the shares, for example, last year, Shell was actually the best performer among the world's top five oil companies. That's in dollar terms. That's now been fizzling out and it's been lagging so far this year. And as I say, shares again fell this morning. So there's a lot more for the CEO to do. He's already been cutting costs. He's already been shedding units, but a big task if he wants to close that gap and boost Shell again.
Well, let's move to Volvo Cars next. Their shares down almost 23% in Stockholm. What's going on?
Yeah, that's the most on record. A similar story in the sense that its fourth quarter results weaker than expected. So they've been dealing with quite a host of issues. So weak demand, pricing pressures, tariffs. There's also been relatively recently the removal of EV incentives in the US, a lot of competition in China, obviously from China car makers. So that's all hitting sales. The CEO described it as, in his words, a very tough market. And what makes it even kind of more of a setback is that they had quite a strong third quarter, and that had kind of lifted confidence that things could be looking up and that the CEO's restructuring could be kind of taking hold. But then the fourth quarter has potentially dampened those hopes. So as I say, he's been embarking on a bit of a restructuring since last year. That's included, thousands of jobs being slashed, but a bit of a setback today with their fourth quarter. But I always do I like to add a bit of light. So there was a small bit that they have risen their sales targets, and they're saying that they will have what they say clearly better cash flow. So a bit of positivity ahead as they're expecting demand for new models.
Okay, that's quite enough optimism for now, Louise. Let's talk about another share that's on the decline this morning, and that's AP Moller-Maersk.
Yeah, it's a bit of a trio of bad news today, actually. So as you say, Maersk, they have announced plans to cut jobs. That's about 1,000 jobs, so 15% of corporate roles. But in total, if you look at their total workforce, it's less than 1%, but still 1,000 jobs. And they're going to be increasing their focus on costs. So predicting annual cost cuts of $180 million. And this is all ties in with what they're calling a sharp focus on productivity. Essentially, they're trying to protect themselves as Red Sea routes are reopening, and that is expected to lead to lower freight rates. They're trying to protect themselves against this. The whole industry has been benefiting from, taking the longer route round the south of Africa. It takes more time, and that's coincided with competition, lowered capacity. So the whole industry has been benefiting, but as the Red Sea opens again, it's expected to have a bit of a hit on rates. So this is Maersk dealing with that, and shares falling on the back of that quite sharply, down about 5% last time I looked, and analysts are saying, a bit of uncertainty ahead, which is weighing on that this morning.
The Stock Movers Report from Bloomberg Radio. Check back with us throughout the day for the latest roundup of companies making news on Wall Street. And for the latest market-moving headlines, listen to Bloomberg Radio live. Catch us on YouTube, Bloomberg.com, and on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app.